NYB community, you know what time it is. Chat Ron, the Minding Your Business podcast. Once again, I'm excited to be coming to you. Let's let it rock. Shout out to my guy, EP. He did the intro for me. Minding Your Business. Let's do it. All right. Excellent. So listen, thank y'all so much. Shout out to everybody on Facebook, everybody on the Wisdom app. Shout out to all of you who are listening to this, or you may be listening to this live. Some of you that are love to jump in and be part of the live broadcast, definitely shout out to you. Ron Brooks, aka Champ Ron, here in Memphis, Tennessee. And we're here for episode 291 of the Minding Your Business podcast, entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's still, even after 291 episodes, there's still no business like minding your own. You can connect with me, champ10k.com. That's where all my links are. When y'all reach out to me and, what's the link for this? What's the link? You talked about this. Relax. champ10k.com. That's where you go. That's where you'll find everything, right? Shout out to all of you that have connected with me. We'll be launching the Land Champs Club. Depending on when you're listening to this, it may already be out. But later this week, if you're listening live, we will be launching the Land Champs Club. For those of you that are interested in learning to invest in land. And like I've told y'all, land is one of the great ways. It doesn't have the huge sex appeal like property. So I get it, right? Y'all get to asking me, what do I do with land? All right. I'm going to show you what I do with land. And there's a ton that you can do with it. And it's a great way to get involved in real estate with not a whole lot of money or a whole lot of knowledge or expertise. And it's a very safe way to get involved, particularly if you're going to be actually buying the property. If you're wholesaling and you're more like moving contracts, that's one thing. But if you really want to get involved with real estate, also you don't want to get involved with a lot of lending and loans and that sort of thing, land is a great way to do it. So I'll be dropping the link for that. So be on the lookout. It's going to be an entire community. So it's going to be more than just a course. There's going to be one-on-one mentorship. There's going to be resources, attorney-prepared contracts that I use and that my business partners use every day to be able to do deals. And so you're going to want to be a part of that. Don't miss out. Don't wait for everybody else to do it first, right? We don't deal with group thought or groupthink here on the Minding Your Business podcast. So definitely tap in with me and be a part of the Land Champs Club. Hope this is catching you at a good time, good spirits. We're now into May, recording this on May the 3rd, 2022. And so hope this finds you in good spirits, man. There's a lot of great things going on. A lot of great things going on around the city of Memphis. Shout out to the Memphis Grizzlies, now as we're recording this, in the second round. They lost game 1 against the Golden State Warriors. They're going to do something about Jordan Poole, and then Draymond's going to be back this next game. So they really got to step this thing up. But not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. So the Grizzlies are, like I said, as the recording of this, game 2, definitely excited about that. There's a lot of buzz in the city. So for those of you that love to see what's going on in Memphis, this is a great time of the year to come. We got Memphis in May going on. We've got the Grizzlies playing in playoff games. We got Barbecue Festival. We're just coming off Music Festival. So Memphis is getting a lot of buzz, rightly so. So I invite you all, if you haven't made that trip to Memphis, go ahead and book it. Don't think about it, just do it. You can think about it. Think about it after you do it. But just do it first and then think about it. But yeah, come on. Definitely, it's a great time of the year to come and check us out. I'm excited about our guest today who's here. She popped out and then popped back in. So I was a little worried if she was getting cold feet or not.
I apologize. Technology has a mind of its own. The internet cut out, but it appears that I'm back. So we'll see.
I was like, what did I say? It's just the intro. But no, Danetha Pohl is with us today. She is an economist, and she's a spokesperson with a company called Clever Real Estate. I want you to check out listwithclever.com. That's CLEVER.com. Listwithclever.com. It's in the show notes. So click there and learn more about the company. We're going to have a great conversation. So thank you so much, Danetha, for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Ron. I'm excited for our conversation.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get a start. Let's learn a little bit about yourself. So, for those that aren't familiar with you, tell us a little bit about kind of your journey to get to where you are, and how you found yourself at such a great company like Clever.
Yeah, absolutely. I started my journey in the financial industry about a decade ago. My background is in economics, and I've always loved learning about ways to build wealth. That has been a common theme since I was a little girl. I've always wanted to figure out how I can make the dream life that I wanted to lead. And I knew that wealth building was the way to do that. And so over these last 10 years, my work has been centered around financial wellness, meaning how do you build wealth without burning out or compromising your values, as well as figuring out things like real estate investing as well. I have been recognized as a personal finance expert by Time, Wall Street Journal, Fast Company, and today I work with Clever, helping them spread the word about the work that we do.
Yep, excellent. Obviously you've been recognized by some very reputable folks, so that speaks very highly. And I'm an economist as well, or at least by education. I'm a business economist by way of the University of Memphis, for whatever that means.
That's exciting. I love chatting with other economists.
Yeah, it's better than accountants.
Oh God, I'm not going to get into that debate. I'm not.
Yeah, we always had the right. Did you guys like when you were in school? Did you always have kind of the beef with the accounting department, or was that just us?
Well, my school was interesting. I had a concentration in accounting, and so at our school it was a liberal arts school, so we didn't have accounting as a major option. It was only economics. We did not have that beef going back and forth. But I'm definitely familiar with the beef between economists, really economists and every other major, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. So we're a little bit less mature than you guys at the at the liberal arts school. So at the business school, we were mortal enemies, and it probably remains so today. I kid. They're probably a lot more mature than we were back then, but we always would throw jabs back and forth with each other between the economists and the accountants. So it's always good to talk to a fellow economist. Tell us about Clever. We have some people that are listening to this that obviously are either connected to the real estate business just from doing buy-sell transactions, or they're investors, or they're even real estate agents themselves. So, tell us about the company and kind of what you do.
Yeah, Clever is a real estate data company, and we are an agent matching platform. So if you are a home buyer, home seller, or a real estate investor like you, Ron, you can work with us to get matched with a real estate agent. And the reason why you would want to work with us is we do a lot of legwork to match you with someone that fits your needs, but you also save money on the commissions as well. On average, we save our folks about $8,000, $9,000 per transaction.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And we work with over 30,000 folks a year to match them with an agent that works best for them. And like I said, we're also a real estate data company. So we produce studies about what's happening in the real estate market so that folks can stay abreast of the current situation.
Absolutely. And so, what are some of the trends that you're seeing, or that your company's seeing in real estate? Obviously, the pandemic has exacerbated some pretty significant areas within all of the world, as we know, but certainly in real estate. What are some of those top trends that you all are seeing and that you're tracking?
Sure. Well, I'm sure we're all seeing the increased prices in the real estate market, and that's across the United States, really across the globe, but we focus on the United States. The reasons for that, one of them is pandemic related because folks are now working remotely. We're seeing a shift in where people want to live. And so that's impacting the market. But also there were some factors that led to this prior to the pandemic, things like housing inventory. There are some reports that say we're 4 million homes short in the United States. So we simply don't have enough
Wow.
supply to meet the demand. And some other trends that we're seeing are folks questioning whether or not to work with a real estate agent. We're seeing some shifts in that that buying or investing process, whether they're going to a lender before the real estate agent. And so those are some of the overarching trends that we're noticing.
Yeah, no, that's tremendous. When you think about some of those things that were coming before the pandemic, right? So 2019, 2018, 2019, the inventory shortage. I've heard contrasting thoughts there. And maybe you can help dispel some myths here, Danetha. Uh, there have been some who have said that it's not that we have a housing shortage. It's that you've had areas in this country that have become very saturated, and that people are all kind of clamoring for a finite number of locations. And so that's what's really causing, there's plenty of housing. It's just that it's not all in desired areas where people want to be. Um, have you seen aspects of that, or is it really kind of more of a hardcore? Um, there are just more people than available housing, and is that really kind of more what it is, or have you seen some remnants of location being really the big challenge? And there's an opportunity to, kind of renovate or revitalize, areas that in the past may not have been as desirable when you start incorporating the lifestyle pieces, right? Schools and jobs and work and, access to the expressway and access to kind of the, live and play areas of life where people like to live. What do you say to that? Any thoughts there?
I would say both are true, actually. So it is true that folks want to move to areas in greater numbers than before, and that area may not have the supply already built in. We're seeing that in ski resort towns. I interviewed the mayor of Breckenridge, for instance. That whole area of Colorado is having trouble meeting the demand because they simply don't have the supply. And that is in part a function of folks realizing, hey, you know what? I want to be closer to nature. I want to be able to play where I live. And now that I can work remotely, why not live in the mountains, or why not live by a rushing river? So that is definitely true. At the same time, after the 2008 crisis, there were some developers that decreased the amount of building that they were doing because they were burned during that time period. And so both are true. Both the lifestyle piece, where folks are gravitating quickly to areas that just don't have the supply, that's part of the issue. And in those areas where, unfortunately, we're seeing things like NIMBYism, where
Mm.
there are folks that want to keep the views that they have and they don't want any high density housing. And we do need to increase the number of high density housing that we have. So that is part of the challenge. And then there's also the challenge of, yeah, we simply just have more people now, and we haven't kept up with building for the amount of demand that we have.
Yeah, we see that here locally in Memphis, and when I've traveled around, Danetha, is construction. Like I say, well prior to the pandemic, construction had really slowed down, and so there isn't this overt a kind of process of continuing to construct new single family housing. You saw this kind of conversion, obviously in multifamily and that sort of thing that has really grown, and you can continue to see that. Most of what we see here in Memphis is either a repurposing of kind of old infrastructure, old warehouses and things like that in kind of key areas, particularly kind of downtown, midtown areas within urban cores. A lot of that's getting revitalized into condos and apartments and things of that nature. Um, you've seen obviously, and we'll talk about this in a second. The increase of pricing in suburban areas. And kind of this comparison of suburban and rural. So it's an interesting dichotomy that's going on when you think about that. And your last point is really interesting. How even despite the pandemic, you've just had in terms of people coming of age and becoming adults. You have more people kind of coming of age than people that are transitioning,
Mhm.
and so then that creates a natural imbalance. That's very interesting. Um, for Clever, all right. So someone comes to Clever, and you mentioned about how they're able to get kind of this discounted options for working with a real estate agent. And I'll tell you that for many people that I talk to, that's something that's a bit of an angst. Is if they don't already have a real estate agent contact, or they don't get like a warm referral connection, it could be a bit daunting. Trying to just go out and Google and just try to Google a real estate agent, or go on a Facebook group and just say, hey, who's an agent? And then you get, 50,000 people that flood your comments with all their friend buddies that are real estate agents. And you're like, okay, I don't know if any of these people are legit, or this just your buddy, or they paid you to tag them here, what. So I think trust and confidence is a big thing that you all have. Can you talk about that, kind of how you work to instill trust and confidence in the relationship between, in this case, home seller and then the realtor?
Absolutely. I think where I'll start is that we were founded by real estate investors. So our founders are folks that have been through the real estate process many, many times. So they have an intimate understanding of what you just said. How do I vet someone if I
Yes.
know nothing about them, if they've just been tagged in this Facebook post? And so they understand those challenges and have baked that into the company. Beyond that, the majority of us that work at Clever have some sort of real estate experience. We have a whole team that's dedicated to vetting real estate agents before they are brought on to be a part of the Clever agent matching platform. And so some things that we ask are, how many homes have you sold before? Like, what has been your experience? And we ask the questions about how they would handle certain scenarios to ensure that they will provide a white glove experience for our customers, because that is our ultimate goal, is to always provide the best service, a white glove experience for anyone that's buying or selling or investing. Even though they're getting it at a discount, they should still get top value out of that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, is there a process, obviously, that a realtor has to go through for that vetting? I imagine you're doing some type of background review. You mentioned the questions that you're asking. Um, and does that also apply to real estate brokers, or are you mostly just dealing with individual agents?
We partner with agents and their firms that they work with. So we have relationships with like Coldwell Banker and some larger firms that folks would be familiar with. And yeah, the vetting process is fairly extensive. They have an interview that they do with us. We have some questions that we ask them about their past experience, like I mentioned. And then we also look at their previous experience in terms of, hey, do you have positive reviews of folks that have worked with you before? So we definitely go through that process to ensure that we can confidently connect a buyer or seller with this agent.
Gotcha. So if you get Ron, who shows up, who's got all these negative reviews and it's been blasted, and you Google, his name's been tied to controversy and stuff like that. He probably has little to no shot with Clever. Huh?
Yes, he wouldn't have much of a chance. We also, during the process, do connect our buyer or seller with two options. And if those two options end up not working out, we can still connect you with another agent. Usually, they go with that very first option, honestly, because we've done so much vetting. Sometimes they'll bump to that second option, and it's rare that they ever try to go beyond that. But yes, definitely we do some vetting, and your example would not make our cut.
Of course not. Yeah, of course not. Something that struck me interesting, and one of the things that I was able to see is a report that you all provide. which I think is very intriguing. It's on the website listwithclever.com. It is titled "The Role of the Realtor in 2022: Expectations and Misconceptions." I love that. And I was reading through that, and I encourage you all, NYB community, to read through that. Whether you're in real estate or not, it's really good, sound quality information that will really kind of give you some good insight as to what's going on. And I want to quote a piece of this, Danetha, that for us to discuss is sellers' confidence that their homes will sell for large sums is likely driving down misgivings about the cost of realtor services. Nearly 4 in 5 sellers, about 77%, plan to use a realtor, up from 54% in 2019. So, that's really telling me that over these last, couple of years, that as prices of real estate has risen, and has risen pretty exponentially in some markets, that's offset the angst that people had prior to that, which was, and this was opening the door for investors to really flood even some owner-occupant markets, which was the idea that I've got to pay realtor commissions, and as realtor commissions were in some markets they were 6-7%. People didn't have quite the equity or spread for that to really make sense for them. Now that there's been this accelerated appreciation in many markets, people then feel they have more of a spread. So there's a little bit more meat on the bone, so to speak, to really hire a real estate agent. Is that true? And is that really kind of what you guys are seeing? And what are your thoughts on some of that?
Yeah, so our survey surveyed homeowners who plan to sell their home in the next 12 months. We surveyed about 1,000 folks. And I love the way you put it, honestly, that there's more meat on the bones to justify that 6 to 7% commission because, home prices have increased astronomically over these last 18 months. And there's a little bit more wealth to be shared, to your point. And more folks now are willing to work with real estate agents. I would be curious, just to continue that thought that we're going down, of when the market does start to cool off, what that translates into. If we'll go back to those 2019 levels that you were mentioning, that was where investors were swooping in, less folks were working with real estate agents. But to your point, our study did find, as of today, given the home prices, folks are more than willing and actually are seeking out working with a real estate agent.
Yeah, I think, as it starts to cool off, so we're seeing now, as of this recording, we're starting to see rising mortgage rates. Mortgage rates are getting back into the 5% range as of this recording. For so long, rates had been in the threes, maybe even the low fours. Actually, for several years and several cycles. And so now we're seeing rates that people haven't seen in a while. And, we're already starting to see news of lenders starting to kind of back down, some of their hiring, reorganizing within their mortgage shops. So it's always interesting how companies will adjust really quickly around just a few changes in mortgage rates and how that has a cascading impact on demand. But I think you're right. I think that as things cool down, and you see interest rates impact some of those folks that are really tied to that, and that really is a motivating factor for them. I'll be interested to see what that does for refinances, right? So definitely that piece of the business. But then on the sell side, typically there's kind of an inverse relationship between sell price and then obviously rising mortgage rates. And so as mortgage rates rise, there tends to be this cascading down of pricing. It'll be interesting to see if that happens, which is typically historically what you see, or an interesting kind of cataclysmic piece would be if pricing kind of remains pretty flat. So it doesn't go up, it doesn't really go drastically down, it remains flat, but then you've got demand that lowers and you've got rising interest rates. That's going to be interesting for this country because I don't know, at least in my study, I don't know if we've ever seen anything like that. There's usually this a bit of a seesaw that takes place. Um, so yeah, I think you're right in that, and it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts all of our businesses. As an investor,
Yeah.
um, what was happening pre-pandemic was people were experiencing distress pieces sometimes within that was their real estate was a part of that, right? So the home or the rental property was a part of that. You had baby boomers who were getting a little bit older, and I saw a lot of this. This contributed to my business. So people were getting to a point where they either needed to move or I kind of define it, Danetha, as something was coming for them. Either something was coming for them, which is loss of job, not being able to pay for things, not being able to do the rehab. Something was coming for them, or they're trying to get to something. So folks who are trying to get to other family, get closer to family, trying to get to grandchildren, children, that sort of thing. New job in another market, and so that was creating. And because, like we talked about, spreads were thinner, people want to work with investors who were catching their spread obviously off the purchase price, and the stress allowing for people being more willing to one have to move quicker and then be willing to accept a somewhat lower price for the convenience of speed, right? And actually closing the deal. And that was opening the door for not just investors, but for people who got started in real estate to do wholesaling. And so then the pandemic comes along, and now more people are spending time on their devices and things like that. So they're learning wholesaling strategies. And then they were going out and executing on that. And in some markets, what happened was the inexperience of some of the folks that were starting to do that, I think, started to rub people the wrong way. And as the prices were increasing, like we talked about earlier, people said, you know what, I don't want to deal with just some random guy or lady calling me, wanting my property and wanting it at a discount. I'm just going to go back to dealing with what's kind of true and blue, which is the real estate agent. Someone that's a little bit more vetted, that's licensed, that I can find when I go online, versus the person that calls me up. I can't find them anywhere. I don't, other than this phone number, that's the only tie I got to them. And so it's just all of this is just interesting as I ramble on with this.
It is, yeah, it is interesting. I am curious. So we've had a lot of situations over these last 18 months that have gone against economic rules and laws that we thought would always be the case. So what you just mentioned about you would be interested in seeing if the prices stayed flat but demand decreased while mortgage rates increased. That in and of itself goes against the very logic that is economics, because a decrease in demand usually means a compression in prices. If we don't see that law, so to speak, has to be thrown out in this situation. So I'm also curious to see, there's a big question mark on a lot of these situations moving forward. One thing that I have noticed anecdotally is I wonder if the increased interest in working with a real estate agent during this time is because it's mostly baby boomers driving that. They are now realizing that this might be at the height of the value of the home that they purchased however many decades ago. They want to now retire to a place where they can play, or they want to be closer to their grandchildren. They want to downsize. They just want to switch things up for themselves. And since they are historically used to working with real estate agents, that might be the reason why we have seen that increase of 54% to 77%. Because the other part of our study did find that more folks are open to working with some sort of AI solution rather
I'll ask you about that.
Yeah, rather than a human. And that part was driven mostly by the millennial portion of our survey. And so I am right. Millennial, Gen Z are coming up right behind millennials. And they both generations they love using technology for a lot of their financial services. So I'll be curious to see if not just if the market cools down and that leads to a shift in the way that we work with real estate agents, but if this generational shift as more boomers sell their properties, and millennials and Gen Z become more of the folks that are in that buying, selling, investing stage of their financial journey, how that adjusts the relationship with real estate agents, and what that looks like for the realtor business as well, how they will have to adjust to be able to continue to have a thriving business, even though it may look a little bit differently.
Absolutely. Danetha Doe is our guest today here on episode 291 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Make sure that you connect with listwithclever.com. Again, in the show notes, make sure you connect there. And you can actually see this study, this survey that we're discussing. You can see it right there for yourself. And kind of draw your own thoughts and that sort of thing. And why don't you email me, Ron at themybpodcast.com. Good, bad, and ugly. If you agree, disagree, you've got strong opinions about that. Some of you have some really strong opinions on Twitter. I don't know if that's going to continue on Elon Musk's Twitter or not, but on the previous version of Twitter, a lot of y'all had some strong comments sometimes on some of this, which was always good and interesting. To say the least. Danetha, I think you're right for the different demographics that are out there. And that was something I was going to ask you because one of the things that came from the survey was roughly half of those that were surveyed believe that the housing market is going to kind of come to, or the bubble's going to pop on the housing market this year. Are you seeing signs with that there could be some sort of bubble that burst, and that could be another factor that's driving people feeling like their opportunity to kind of cash out, so to speak, or at least coming close to its apex, and so that could drive some inherent demand in the short run. People who are trying to time the market and try to get ahead before they see any kind of retraction. Any thoughts there?
I'm definitely seeing elements of FOMO, chaos, all these emotional factors that are contributing to this situation of increased housing prices. And also, I do believe that folks are seeing that this may be the apex, especially if they're in their third chapter of their life and they're realizing, okay, we made a great investment and now is the time to cash in on that investment. That is definitely present. I wish I could pull out a crystal ball and know what this will all mean in 5 to 7 years. I think, everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's got a prediction. I'm honestly taking this year, 2022, to sit and watch and see what exactly is going to shake out. Because a couple of things that I'm paying attention to are, it's simply unsustainable, the rising costs of housing, not just buying a home, but also renting a home. We're seeing, and so if those two are not an option for an individual within the United States, we are in a challenging situation that we're in economically, if it's unattainable to both buy a home and also unattainable to rent a home. So some of the metrics that I'm looking at, both metrics and anecdotes that I'm looking at, are looking at cities that are prioritizing affordable housing as part of their ongoing growth strategy. There's some cities that have made that a priority in terms of balancing the amount of homes that are available to purchase and rent in their area according to the median income in that area. They're also looking to build up their high density housing. And those are some factors that we really haven't paid attention to. We haven't had those factors play into our economic review of cities for quite some time. I think we should have had those as factors that we looked at, but going forward, that I believe will be the primary, one of the primary metrics to look at.
Yeah, definitely. Something else that caught my eye in the survey, which was so a lot of this comes down to expectations, right? Like many things in life, personally and professionally, come down to managing expectations. So one of the things that I see is, the expectation of sellers to get an accepted offer. And when I read down the percentages, it's interesting. So after listing their home, sellers expect to receive an offer or accept an offer. Less than a week was 8%. 1 to 2 weeks was 19%. 3 to 4 weeks was the highest at 25%. 1 to 2 months was 24%. 3 to 4 months, 18%, and then longer than 4 months, 6%. Of course, I'd love to see how that looked, say, in 2019 or 2018 as a comparison. But what are your thoughts there in terms of the expectation of sellers, and maybe with the curiosity that you and I have around what's going to happen going forward, how that may be impacted, how the expectation of the seller receiving an accepted offer may change or may even lengthen from what you're seeing in some markets. I'll tell you, Danetha, here, there are areas of Memphis, and many people listening to this can attest to this. There are areas here in Memphis where people are getting offers like they'll list, and within an hour, sometimes 2 hours, they're getting offers above asking, with no contingencies, And so, how do you compete with that, right? And so, what are your thoughts on that, kind of that seller expectation for, receiving, what they'll consider to be good offer?
Sellers have all the power right now. So their expectations are, from what we found in the survey, are in alignment with reality. They can expect a decent offer within, most of them were saying between 2 to 4 weeks. But anecdotally, I'm seeing the same thing in various cities, whether I'm originally from Oakland, California. I currently live in Oregon. I looked at Colorado's market. A lot of states and cities around the country are seeing not only offers roll in immediately, but also offers over asking price. In Oakland, California, it is not unheard of for it to be $100,000 over asking price.
Wow.
So definitely those expectations are in alignment with reality. Will those expectations be in alignment with reality forever? No, the market is definitely going to shift. Who knows when and what that will look like? But yes, the seller definitely is in the driver's seat right now.
Yep, definitely. I want to go back to something that you mentioned about kind of younger generations being more interested in working with AI. Um, what does that typically look like? Kind of from your perspective. Obviously using kind of mobile technology in I guess connecting and finding property. Uh, not needing someone to kind of quarterback it. People I think feel like they kind of have the knowledge and whatnot to kind of quarterback their own transaction. They more would use that, I guess, for one, locating the property and then getting fact data on making a reasonable offer, and then I'm assuming the software is kind of handling some of that automated communication, maybe with the seller. Um, is that kind of the route that you see this going? And as those generations mature, and then you have generations that come, behind that, it's going to be interesting on what that means, for the real estate agent, and the future of the real estate agent, say over the next, 25, 30 years.
Yes. Well, of course, I'm biased because I work for Clever. However, and we are tech enabled, we do prioritize that human relationship, though. So it's not 100% tech enabled. I wouldn't put us in the AI category. However, the shift that we are seeing is that less folks are going to rely on word of mouth, asking your neighbor or your friend or posting on Facebook for a recommendation. They will go to a tech platform to find a real estate agent, whether that's Clever or an iBuyer. We've been paying a lot of attention to iBuyers like Opendoor, for instance, to see they are impacting the market, and they are having an impact on the market. I think moving forward, tech-enabled agent matching type of platforms are going to be the future. The challenge with it being 100% tech is that real estate will always be a big purchase, whether it's your home purchase or it's an investment property. It's not something that you're just going to scroll through and just make a last minute or in the moment decision. There's going to be some thought to it. And because of that, there's relationship building as well. There will always be the human component. However, that human component is going to be augmented with the tech piece more and more, as I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a human component that's always going to exist because, like you say, the size of the transaction. For most people in this country, buying a property of some sort is typically the biggest purchase that they make, just in terms of size, scope, and then impact. And so I think there's always going to be a level of expertise, at least for the foreseeable future. Now, there may come a day in our lifetimes where the thought around that completely kind of goes away and people kind of succumb to the convenience of technology. But I'd like to think that it's still a big enough purchase, to your point, that human heart-to-heart connection is still going to be desired. And it's interesting because when I look at my kids, I've got 3 daughters, and they were all born like 2010, 11, and 12. So they're kind of that post Gen Z, whatever they're going to call that generation.
Gen Alpha.
Gen Alpha. Okay, I have heard that before. Yeah, so this Gen Alpha, of course, they're kind of young to really get a sense of what they're going to be as adults. But at least what I'm seeing locally, small sample size, with some of my daughter's friends, they don't have this overt connectivity to technology for it to do everything for them. Like, they're kind of winning a little bit off social media. They kind of like just specific stuff. If they're gamers, they like Discord. If their social media preference is TikTok, but they're not really like across all the different ones. And I noticed they're a little bit more sensitive to what's being done with their data. They've seen Zuckerberg have to sit in front of Congress, and and they've heard their parents talk about that. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's any revert back to adopting principles of previous generations with some of these younger generations as they come up and they start looking at this and say, you know what, I really just want to deal with a person. I don't want it to all be tied into AI. And my prediction would be that that's going to happen, that there's going to be a younger generation that's going to come along and that's going to see it for how can we truly use technology to handle the repetitive pieces of the transaction so that people do what they do best, which is connect and have heart-to-heart conversation and the endearment that comes and the flexibility that comes through relationships. And I think that, or at least my hope is that that's what tends to prevail. What do you think about that?
I love that. I think that's also spot on in terms of, we're both saying that technology will be a piece of it, but it'll be for the convenience aspect. It's going to be for the mundane tasks that no one ever really wanted to do anyway, but had to do because we didn't have technology to facilitate some of those maybe data entry types of functions, so that the individual can now focus on really connecting and really getting to know the individual's desires. What do they want out of the home? Where do they want to be placed? Where do they want to be placed in terms of location to where they live and work and play? I see a lot of parallels with the accounting industry. So my background is also in the accounting profession. The accounting profession has gone through this tech experience where a lot of the role of, say, the bookkeeper or the tax professional, a lot of that has been automated due to whether it's QuickBooks or Xero or FreshBooks, and that hasn't replaced the accountant professional. They're still needed, but they're more needed for strategy and high level functions when working with the client. I believe the same thing's going to happen with the real estate agent and the realtor market. A lot of them will have to step up their game when it comes to working with clients and really going above and beyond and finding making those relationships so that they can connect folks with great deals. But then the tasks that can be automated, they'll be able to use technology to do that. Whether that could also be marketing their agency firm, because we've got platforms that will connect them to potential buyers.
Yep, excellent. No, I love that. You all have so much going on, and there's so much rich information that came from that survey. Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you want to point out? Because there's so many great points that we could point out. We'd have a 24-hour podcast just to go through all of it. So anything we haven't discussed that you'd like to share?
We really hit on the topics that I wanted to talk about, specifically around technology, AI, and how that's impacting the market. I would say the other piece to pay attention to that none of us know the answer to is, how does this market play out? I think our survey does indicate that there is a feeling that we are in a bubble, and feeling and emotion does have a play in the market. It's not all data, it's not all metrics, it is human perception and human emotion. And,
right.
And that is something I believe to pay attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what advice, Danetha, would you provide to someone that's learning about Clever here for the first time and want to engage it? What should they look forward to, in terms of their experience and that sort of thing? From someone that's listening to this and says, "Listen, I'm looking to sell my house, and it'd be great to connect with a realtor through Clever."
Yes, well, head on over to listwithclever.com, and there's a form there that you can fill out. We'll connect you with one of our customer success agents. And what we do is we ask you, what are you looking for in your experience, whether you're selling or buying? We do all of that upfront work. So by the time that we connect you with an agent, we're connecting you with someone that knows exactly what you want and can point you in the right direction in your local market.
Yeah, excellent. No, excellent. And it's nationwide, of course. So in any market that you are here in the United States, are there any states that you're not in, or are you in all 50 states? Or
we are in all 50 states, with the caveat that there are some states that don't allow for commission rate reductions. And so there are some states where our cash back offers are not an option, but we are present in all 50 states.
All right, excellent. Yeah, so I encourage you, NYB community, definitely go to listwithclever.com. Again, the site is in the show notes. Make sure that you go there, click on that, reach out to them, and let them know that you heard Danetha right here on the Minding Your Business podcast. Obviously, Danetha, you've been successful kind of throughout your career, and will continue to do so. For someone that's listening to this that would like to be the next Danetha, or would like to kind of follow that same pathway, what are one or two things that have really worked for you in your career that you think will help someone that's listening to this episode?
Thank you for that question, and I love. Thank you for that. I would say, not to be a contrarian, but to go along with what you just said about following in my footsteps, actually the number one thing that has helped me get to this point is by being my own person. And so look for inspiration in all industries. I actually look to the music industry mostly for inspiration on how to craft my career. I don't necessarily look to other financial folks. So don't be afraid to look to your passions and find folks that are doing what you're passionate about and apply that to your career, even if it's outside of that industry. And then my second tip is really getting to know yourself, because there are a lot of messages on what success looks like, and it's going to look differently for every single person. So the more you know what motivates you and you go after that unapologetically, you'll be fine.
Yep. No, love that. Love both of those. No, thank you for that. As we wrap up here, this has been a tremendous, just insightful conversation. The meaning of family for you, and whatever shape or form that takes. What does family mean for you, and how has family been able to help kind of support what you do? and kind of in some many ways make you give meaning to what you do.
Yes, family takes a lot of different shapes for people. I was raised by an economics professor. My mom is a powerhouse. She could wrap a dollar around the neighborhood 12 times. I learned a lot from both parents. I would say, family for me are people that I can be my most authentic self with, whether we're blood related or not, and folks that are truly happy for my success just as much as I'm happy for theirs. And so, having that support system is critical.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it definitely is for sure. So, Danetha, listen, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us here and speak with me and put up with me here on the Running Your Business podcast. This has been, very insightful, very informative. I encourage everybody again to go to listwithclever.com and connect. You can actually see the survey, the results from the survey. Very eye-opening. If you're looking to sell your home, you're looking to buy property, this is a great kind of one-stop shop to get involved and get connected with the resource and the people that you need to help you complete a transaction, and then also to build a relationship with that you can repeat. And that's the great thing of think of Clever as kind of the platform that allows you to connect with vetted resources and vetted people to build relationships, and how you can use technology to build relationships like Danetha and I talked about today. I think that's a great way to view all this and how it interconnects. So thank you so much for your time, and look forward to remain connected and getting plugged in with Clever.
Thanks so much, Ron. This has been such a joy chatting with you.
Yep, absolutely. Yes, I love it. So, Danetha Poe, I said Poe, Doe. So yeah,
I just love Edgar Allan Poe as well, so that's a big compliment. Thank you.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm glad we can see it that way.
You're like, I meant to do that. You're welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cut the tape there. We'll edit that around. No, Danetha, again, thank you so much. NYB, this is the caliber of people that I like to bring to you, as you know, and have been doing so since the very beginning of this podcast. And so, definitely, share this with your friends, with your family, that can benefit, from this information and getting connected. And definitely reach out, but make sure you go to listwithclever.com. Listen, we're going to get out of here. This has been episode number 291 of the Minding Your Business podcast, entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. Look out for the Land Champs Club, as I mentioned at the opening of the show. And it's probably, if you're listening, depending on when you're listening to this, it's already out. You may already be part of the club. I'd love to be able to have you. And I may need to reach out to Danetha. I think there's a way that maybe we could plug Clever into what we're doing with the Land Champs Club. So I definitely want to reach out to her and have that conversation as well. 3 things that unite us, no matter where you're from, no matter what side of the tracks, what side of the ocean that you're from. 3 things unite us all. We all want to be a little bit better for ourselves, a little bit better for our families, and a little bit better for our communities. And if we can keep those 3 things in mind with whoever we connect with, and I tell you guys this every episode, so you're going to keep getting it from me. Those 3 things unite us all. And so if we keep those things in mind with everybody that we interact with, we all collectively can make this place just a little bit better. Chad Brown, the Minding Your Business podcast. I'll catch you on the next episode. Until then, be great.